Hey everybody, welcome to our next episode of Nerding Out. We're going to be talking in depth today about the Project Black Flag and their 2 packets full of information about their new game. I'm expecting a lot of information between here and Gen Con, especially because they're going to have a Kickstarter for the first 2 books on here, and they're also going to be doing a demo at Gen Con. If you want to be a playtester, you can find out more information about that and their website down below. Now remember, this is a brand new game style, so there's not too many options yet with race and class, but that's to be expected for the first set of information. But enough talk, let's get into it. Alright, let's get the basic stuff out of the way. Very similar to 5th edition, your HP goes by con, and your ability modifiers are the same as well. One thing I did notice in the level advancements was that going from level 2 to 3, it goes from 300 experience to 2700 experience, and then from 4 to 5, it just stays at 6500, whereas in 5th edition, the experience from 2 to 3 goes from 300 to 900, and then 4 to 5 is 2700 to 6500. I'm sure that's a typo, because why bother even going to 4th level if you're not going to get anything from it? But that was just something I wanted to point out. Other than that, the basics are very similar to 5th edition. The races for the playtest are small, but there are the common 3, which are dwarf, elf, and human, with some heritages for each one, or like the variants in 5th edition. For dwarves, you've got the Fireforge, which they're dwarves that live and work close to lava, volcanoes, really hot places, basically. And then you have stone, which live in the mountains and do mostly metal work inside the mountains. Then a unique twist, I think, to the elves, you have got the cloud elves, which thrive with magic. They live on islands inside of the clouds, and are your basic high elves, as you would say in 5th edition, where they are very sure of themselves. And then you have Grove, which is mostly bards and druids, just people who really love the earth and embrace nature. And of course the humans, we've got Nomadic, who travel and move constantly, somewhat hermit-like creatures. And then you have the Cosmopolitan, who are community-loving, cultural people who love crowds. City folk just love to be in crowds. For backgrounds, we've only got 2, and they're exactly what they sound like. We have Scholar for you wizardy folk, and then we have Soldier for the stabby folk. Now, luck does work a little bit different here in Black Flag World. If you're a halfling in 5th edition, you get lucky, where if you roll a 1, you have a chance to roll again and get a better roll. Well, here in Black Flag, all players get luck, but it's a little different. A player can spend a luck point as a 1-for-1 bonus to any d20 roll that they make. So for example, if you roll a 14, you can spend one of your luck points to make that baby a 15. Of course, that has to be done before the GM says pass or fail. The only thing you can't use them on is if it's a natural 1 and you can't add them all up to be a level natural 20. Each character has the opportunity to earn these, and there's a couple of ways to do that. The GM can choose to reward you with some. Once per turn, if you fail an attack roll or save, you can gain 1. And then a party can be rewarded for just surviving. You start with 0 and can have up to 5 at a time, but you gotta use them up or else you're gonna lose them. If you've got the maximum and you're awarded one, you have to roll a d4 and go with whatever result you have, so use them if you've got them. And now for the fun part. What better classes to start the game out with than Squish and Not So Squish, or known as Wizard and Fighter. So let's meet Frank the Fighter. Frank is obsessed with one thing: punching. He starts with a hit die of 1d10. His key abilities are Strength or Dex, which, let's be honest, he's a Strength boy. Save proficiency is Con and Strength or Dex. Equipment proficiencies are all armor and all weapons. Likes punching things and is a Leo. For each character, it only gives specifics for up to level 8, so we're going to go through Frank's 1 through 8. At level 1, your proficiency bonus is +2, and it stays that way all the way up to level 4. For your first level features, you get Last Stand, and you get 1 per long rest, and 1 martial action, which we're going to go in depth with all of these later on. At level 2, you get an action surge, 1 per rest. At level 3, you get a discipline, and level 4, you get an improvement. At level 5 through 8, your proficiency bonus goes from a +2 to a +3. And for level 5, you get a multi-attack. At level 6, you get another improvement. At level 7, you get a discipline feature. And at level 8, you get another improvement. For first level Frank, you get Last Stand once per long rest, and as your choice of a martial action, which your options are Aim, Guard, quick strike, and wind up. Each of these has a prerequisite, which we'll break down too. For aim, that requires to have, of course, a ranged weapon. And as a bonus action, you take the time to increase the effectiveness of your next ranged weapon attack. When you use aim, select one target you can see. If you make a ranged weapon attack against that target before the end of your turn, you double your proficiency bonus for the first attack roll. For guard, you have to have a shield, and as a bonus action, you raise your shield to intercept incoming attacks. When you use guard, select one enemy creature within 5 feet of you. The target has disadvantage on the first attack roll it makes against you or an ally with 5 feet of you before the start of your next turn. For quick strike, you have to be able to wield 2 weapons. And as a bonus action, you can make a weapon attack with a light melee weapon you're holding. You add your ability modifier to the damage of this attack as you would with a normal weapon attack. If the light melee weapon has the thrown property, you can choose to throw it for its attack as well. For wind up, just as it sounds, it requires wielding a 2-handed or a versatile weapon with both hands. So you take the time to increase the effectiveness of your next weapon attack. When you use this, select one target you can see within 5 feet of you. If you make a melee weapon attack against that target before the end of your turn, you double your proficiency bonus for the first attack roll. When you hit 2nd level, you get the action surge, which means on your turn, you can activate this feature to gain an additional action on top of your regular action as any possible bonus action. Once used, you must complete a short or long rest before using it again. At level 3, you finally get to choose one of your 2 disciplines, which you have Spellblade or Weapon Master to choose from, which we'll go over the specifics of that later. At level 4, you get an improvement, which increases one ability score of your choice by 1. Level 5 gets you the multi-attack ability. Level 6, you get another improvement. Level 7, you get the discipline feature. Depending on your discipline that you choose, it'll tell you which one you get. And at level 8, you get another improvement. Now, disciplines, you've got your Spellblade, which basically is a fighter with a dash of wizard in it. And Weapon Master, well, it's a master of your weapons. Your Spellblade fighter gets spells. And here is the progression for the Spellblade discipline. For 3rd level, you get Arcane Spellcasting, Enchant Weapon, and 1 talent from the expanded talent list, which we'll go over at the very end of this. There are a lot of them. You also get 2 cantrips, 3 known spells, and can cast 2 first level spells. From there, 4th through 6th, you get 1 more known spell and can cast 3 level 1 spells per long rest. At 7th level, you can get Spell Multi-Attack, 5 known spells, and can do 4 first level spells and 2 second level. Then at 8th, you get 1 more known spell. And here's some fancy tidbits of knowledge for those of you who want to get super in-depth. For Enchant Weapon, if you spend 1 hour of uninterrupted focus in contact with a weapon, which can be done during a rest, you can imbue that weapon with a limited form of enchantment. Now the enchantment lasts until you choose to end it, or you use the feature on another weapon. While you hold it, your enchanted weapon functions as a magic weapon, and that grants you a +1 to your attack or your damage rolls made with it. The weapon ceases to be magical when it isn't on you, but otherwise it follows the rules of a typical magical item. Spell multi-attack is exactly how it sounds. You're going to hear that a lot in this. When you use multi-attack class features to make multiple attacks with the attack action, you can replace one of those attacks by casting a cantrip with casting time of 1 action. You can't cast more than 1 cantrip though in 1 attack action. If you're looking for more of a traditional fighter style, then you're looking for the Weapon Master. At 3rd level, you get your Mastery, which means you choose 3 simple or martial weapons that you have a proficiency in. Once per turn, when you roll your damage for that attack with a weapon you have mastered, you can re-roll one of the weapon's damage dice and use either result. You can also get 3 known stunts, which we'll go over in a bit. At 7th level, you get Deadly Flourish, which any weapon attack made with this weapon you've mastered scores a critical hit with 19 to 20. You also get to learn 1 more stunt with this. But what are stunts, you ask? They are different types of fancy attacks that you've learned by being a master of your art. But there are requirements for certain ones, so make sure you've got what it takes. To get stunt points, you gain a number of points equal to your proficiency bonus +1. Each one costs a certain amount of points, and you regain those points when you've completed a short or long rest. And as of right now, the list, all of them only cost 1. If you decide that you don't really like that stunt that you took, you can replace one each time you learn a new stunt at the next level. Some require your targets to make a save. For that, you would use this formula for. Now back to your stunts. For the Arcing Strike, you have to have a 2-handed weapon that deals slashing damage specifically. And when you successfully hit, you also deal an additional half of that amount to a different target as part of that attack. For Cheap Shot, you have to have a melee weapon of some sort, and if you hit your target with a melee weapon as part of the attack action, you can immediately make an unarmed strike against that target as part of the same attack. For Hobbling Strike, If you hit a creature with a weapon as part of the attack action, you can choose to forego dealing damage with the attack and instead reduce the target's movement speed by half. For Make It Count, when you take that action, you can make a single weapon attack with a plus 10 to the attack roll. And you can't make an additional attack as part of the attack action, even if features like multi-attack would normally allow you to do so. But it does give you that extra boost for that one hit. For parry, you do have to have a melee weapon of some sort, and that's if a creature within 5 feet of you misses with a weapon attack, you can use your reaction to immediately make a melee weapon against that creature. For run through, you have to have a weapon that deals piercing damage. And if you deal damage with that weapon attack, you can deal an additional half of that amount of damage to a different target that you can see within 5 feet. For Shifting Strike, you have to have a melee weapon that deals slash damage. And if you hit someone with that, you can immediately move to a different unoccupied square that's within 5 feet of your target. The movement does not count against the normal amount of movement on your turn. For Sweep the Leg, you have to have a melee weapon. And if you successfully hit a creature no larger than one size category above you, so as in if you're small, you can hit medium. If you're medium, you can hit large. You can attempt to knock the target down. So the target must succeed a strength save or fall prone. And now for wizards. Now you're going to hear me say spell rings in this portion a bit, which is just Black Flag talk for spell levels. Now on to William the Wizard. He's a book guy, likes to cast spells on warm evening walks, a writer, and a Virgo. Now there are 4 circles of magic in Project Flag. First you have Arcane, which is the manipulation of measurable forces that govern material reality, including forces like heat, space, and gravity. So if you're trying to use spells that are from 5th edition to convert it into the Black Flag, you're going to want to look for spells that do detecting, that suppresses things, harness elemental energy like acid, cold, fire, lightning, all that. As long as it's got one of those components on it, then you can transfer it into Black Flag. Now for Divine, that is where it draws its power from the connectivity that exists between beings, or from your gods. For those types of spells, again, you can pull any from 5th edition. So if you are wanting to use a spell from 5th edition in Black Flag, you will want to look for spells that interact with another creature's life force, like when you're healing or if you're trying to harm them, does like radiant or necrotic damage, or specifies an interaction with a deity that includes the words like faith or patron in the description. For Primordial, that draws its powers from energies of nature, so more of your druid stuff. If the spell from 5th edition alters or enhances a biological characteristic, specifically interacts with plants or beasts, or copies an effect that's a natural phenomenon like a storm or things like that, then you can use it under the Primordial ring. From Weird, Wired? I would say wired, like wyvern. Those bring its forces that sit beyond measurable reality. So anything from 5th edition that's like summoning, or a different plane or realm of existence, anything that's like elemental in nature, or traveling between planes like Dimension Door. On top of the circles of magic, you also have 8 schools of magic. You've got your Abjuration, which creates wards, shields, and other means of deflectiveness to defend targets. Conjuration restructures space, enables objects, creatures, and other targets to be transported. Divination, allowing a user to glean locations, outcomes, or sensory feedbacks beyond perception. Enchantments, which influence the minds of creatures, allowing manipulation of emotions or behavior. Evocation, shape energy, allowing a user to change air into roaring flames or create a storm. Illusion, deceive the senses, allowing a use to mask or alter the truth and create objects. Necromancy, which manipulate life, allowing a user to rapidly heal wounds or reanimate the dead. And transmutation, alter the forms of creatures or objects, allowing a user to turn lead into gold, etc. Now before we go into the levels, let's go over all of your spell casting information. So what kind of spells are there? It's just like in your 5th edition, you've got your cantrips and rituals. Cantrips can be cast without using a spell slot and without being prepared. Rituals are magic that take 1 minute or longer to cast and often require materials. And each day you have to prepare your spells like we are used to. You can't just go into battle and pick one out of the blue. You have to think this out beforehand. Now once you've used those spells, you do have to do a short or long rest to gain them back, depending on the description for that spell. For ritual casting, you don't need to prepare ritual spells to cast them, and they don't expend a slot when cast. Now some of your spells do need components, like I said, to cast, and they'll have a nice little letter next to them like this if you don't know what they stand for. So for verbal, or V, you have to speak the spell. For somatic, or S, you have to have free use of at least one hand to perform these spells. And materials with an M requires some certain types of objects like a diamond for raising the dead. So some of them also have how long they last on there, some immediately go off, others you have to concentrate on, and of course, as with everything, those have certain rules. Concentration requires for you to keep the spell going. Normal activity like moving and attacking doesn't interfere, but if you get smacked, that'll break it. Whew. Alright, now on to the fun stuff. What do you get to do as a wizard? So for the first level of wizards, you get arcane spellcasting and arcane recovery, which is basically your spells and how to get them back. You know 3 cantrips, 1 ritual, and 2 first level spells. You also get a spell book with 6 first ring arcane circle spells of your choice. Each time you gain a level, you can add 2 wizard spells to that spellbook for free, but each spell must be of a ring that you have spell slots in already. And again, you get arcane recovery, which means you can regain some of your magical energy by studying your spellbook. For second level, you get 1 more first level spell and magic sense, which is basically detect magic. So until the end of your next turn, you know the location of any creatures with the ability to cast spells, ongoing spell effects, or magic items within 30 feet of you. If the magical effect is an ongoing spell, you learn which school of magic that it belongs to. So this one can penetrate most barriers, but is blocked by 1 foot of stone, 1 inch of common metal, a thin sheet of lead, or 3 foot of wood or dirt. At 3rd level, you get an extra ritual and 1 first level spell, along with 2 second level spells. And just like with the fighter, you get to choose your 3rd level option for your tradition, or like the fighter called his discipline. For wizards, you have either the battle mage or the cantrip adept. Battle mage is less squish wizard, and cantrip adept is more of your traditional wizard type. You get more spells. For level 4, you get an improvement, which again just increases an ability score by 1, and you get to choose a talent. You also get 1 more cantrip and 1 more level 2 spell. Level 5 gets 1 ritual spell, and you get 2 third level spells. Level 6 gets 1 more ritual spell. Level 7, you get something from your chosen tradition and a feature from that tradition. You also get 1 ritual spell and 1 4th level spell. And level 8 gets you another improvement from your tradition choice with another talent option, and you get 1 more 4th level spell. And now for the fun stuff, the battle mage. At 3rd level, if you choose this, you get to choose from the talent list. You also get Spell Ward and Tactical Caster. For Spell Ward, you can redirect a portion of your energy into a defensive shield, which means you weave a protective ward around yourself. While it's active, if you're not proficient in medium or heavy armor, you gain a bonus of your AC equal to your proficiency bonus, and you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. This will last up to 1 minute. It ends early if you're knocked unconscious or in your turn ends and you haven't cast a spell since your last turn. You can choose to dismiss it at any time. No action required by you. Now, Tactical Caster is when you cast a spell that deals damage, you can choose anyone to be immune. So if you've got a friendly in your sights, you can say, "Not today." At 7th level, you get Contingency Plan, which is if you fail to hit somebody with your spell, you can use your reaction to attempt to redirect it somewhere else. Fun, huh? Now, if you choose the Cantrip Adept instead at 3rd level, you get Arcane Alacrity and the Cantrip Polymath. Arcane Alacrity says that if you can cast a cantrip that takes 1 action, you can change that time to a bonus action for casting. And for Polymath, you gain 2 cantrips from any circle spell. They don't count against the number of cantrips that you already know. And lastly, at level 7, you get Potent Spell Casting, which means you can add your proficiency bonus to 1 damage roll of any cantrip that you can cast. Now, what if your wizard's using armor? Can you cast with that on? Well, sure, if you're proficient with that armor type. Otherwise, as the packet says, you're too distracted and physically hampered to cast. They also specify that your spells cannot stack, so if you cast mage armor on your bard, and then another wizard casts mage armor on the same bard, that bard only gets it once, so you just wasted a spell. Congrats. Remember when I mentioned that you get talents at certain levels? Well, now we're going to go over all that portion. There are 3 types of talents: magic, martial, and technical. Your class determines which list you'll get to pull from. So let's break it down. We're just going to read these off as they say in the packet, so forgive how formal this sounds. Lord have mercy on my soul, that is so much. Mental Fortitude. Once per long rest, when you fail an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma save, you can choose to reroll the save and take the new result. But you have to declare your intentions to reroll after you've learned that you failed, but before the GM has resolved the consequences of the roll. If you're affected by an ongoing spell or magical effect that targets only you due to failing an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma save, you can repeat the save and end each of your turns, ending in the effect on a success, even if the ongoing magical effect would not typically allow you to do so. Mental Prowess. Increase your charisma, intelligence, or wisdom ability score by 1. You can't raise an ability score above 20, but you can select this talent multiple times. Ritualist. Prerequisite is the spellcasting class feature, or also known as being a wizard. When you take this, you also gain a ritual book which contains the rituals that you know. To cast one, you have to have a ritual book in hand. Choose a circle of magic, arcane, divine, primordial, or wired. You must choose your ritual from that circle. Regardless of which circle you choose, you use your normal spellcasting ability for these spells. When you get your book, you add 1 ritual of each spell ring you have already unlocked. Each time you gain access to a new ring of spell slots, you add 1 new ritual spell to your book. This new ritual must be from the same circle of magic you originally chose, and it must be of a ring you have a spell slot in. School specialization. Prerequisite is the ability to cast spells, again also known as a wizard. Whenever you cast a spell from that school that requires you to make an attack roll, you add a +1 to that roll. Whenever you cast a spell from that school that requires a target to make a save versus your spell save DC, the DC increases by 1. If you use a spell book to cast your spells, the gold and time that you must spend copying that spell that school into your spell book is halved. You can select this talent multiple times, but you have to choose a different school of magic each time. Elemental Savant. Prerequisite is you must cast at least 1 damage spell. Choose one out of this list: acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. When you cast a damage spell, you can choose one of those for that spell. Also, if you use a spell of your element, any damage dice with the result of 1 can be rerolled but must keep the new roll. Combat casting. Prerequisite is must be able to cast spells. You automatically succeed on con saves to maintain concentration if the DC is lower than the spellcasting DC. When an enemy enters a space within 5 feet or provokes an attack of opportunity, you can use your reaction to cast a cantrip. You can use a shield or weapon you're holding as a spellcasting focus as normal. You can also use those hands to perform somatic spell components. Now for the martial talents. Artillerist. Prerequisite is a strength score of 13 or higher. You ignore the loading properties of simple and martial weapons with which you are proficient. You have an advantage on attack rolls made with siege weapons or projectile launching objects you operate. Your GM has final say on if it falls into this category or not. Hand to hand, you are proficient with your unarmed strikes. Your unarmed strikes deal bludgeoning damage equal to 1d6 plus your strength. You have advantage on ability checks made to initiate or escape a grapple. Physical prowess. Increase your strength, dex, or con ability score by 1. You can't raise an ability score above 20 in this way. You can select this talent multiple times though. Armor training. You can select multiple times. If you're already proficient in something, it'll go to the next level, and at max, it does nothing. First time, you gain proficiency with light armor. The second time, you gain it with medium armor and shields. The third time, you gain proficiency with heavy armor. Armored combatant. Prerequisite for this is proficiency with heavy armor. When you're wearing armor, you gain a +1 bonus to AC. Each instance of bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from a non-magical attack is reduced by your proficiency bonus. Combat conditioning. Your max HP increases by 2 for each level you currently have. Also, when you gain a level, your hit die gets 1 size larger. For example, D6 goes to D8. And finally, for the technical talents. You have Touch of Luck. For whenever you would gain a luck point as a result of failing an attack roll or save, you instead gain 2. If you have 5 luck points and would gain a 6th point, your luck point total resets to D4 + 1. Polyglot. You learn 3 languages, none of which are common. You have an advantage on charisma ability checks made to interact with non-hostile creatures from whom any of those 3 languages is their primary language. When you make an ability check related to understanding the meaning of a verbal or written language you don't know, you can add your proficiency bonus to the roll. If you have proficiency in a relevant skill or tool, you add double your bonus. And trade skills. You gain a proficiency with 1 skill plus 1 type of tool or vehicle relevant to your chosen profession. Or you can gain proficiency with 2 types of tools or 2 types of vehicles relevant to your profession. Provided you have access to the necessary equipment and customers, you can spend a day plying your trade and expect to be paid 2 gold for your goods or services of equivalent value. Equivalent value is up to your GM. And that is a breakdown of what Kobold Press has released so far. We have made it, folks. You are now ready to start playtesting this. Go out, have fun. Tell us what you think about it in the comments below, and tell us how you found ways to break the game, because we know that we're all good at breaking games. We will be covering the new Dungeons & Dragons movie next week. We are giving it a week so people can go and see it if they want to. Hopefully there will be no spoilers in our rundown, but if it's what we think it is, I want to go in depth in this. So we will be seeing you on the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this special edition of it. Cannot wait to go playtest this at Gen Con. You will see content from us on that one as well. But you will have a good rest of your weekend. Enjoy seeing the Dungeons & Dragons movie.